Hello and welcome to the latest Business of the Business podcast. I am your co-host, JP John Potts from the Two-Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me, the financial wrestling genius himself, Mr. Trump Mania, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, John, I'm doing well. Given your expertise, no offense, you could be the host. I am glad
Oh,
to support things. We're collaborating together as we're on episode 208 from my count.
so as far as business concerned, obviously 2-8, a lot of episodes. We've covered the gamut. We've covered so many different things. And an interesting thing that I know was a part of the show a while ago, and we've talked to Brett about this numerous times, and we almost like we've been like kind of wishing it into the universe almost. It's almost like we've covered this on a bunch of different episodes here and there, but it's kind of like following the track of the show. Hammerstein Ballroom. What is going on with Hammerstein?
Suddenly, it's back to being the center of a certain portion of the wrestling universe. Once again, of course, we know the GCW show that's planned in January that WrestleTix had a count shortly after it came out, somewhere, I think, around 600 tickets moved, which wasn't a bad start. I think they need some sort of draw as a main event. But then suddenly we get word of a Ring of Honor show in late December, I think the 20th. And then the following day, an AEW taping to follow, which I think it's a really smart move, both for Ring of Honor and AEW under Tony Khan to do this. It has a great environment. You don't have to draw that many people to fill it up. Ring of Honor has its history. AEW has never been in Manhattan before. I think that will be a super hot ticket. I'm interested. Well, the Ring of Honor is on Friday night, so I couldn't go. I would be interested, but AEW, I'm interested in checking that out. In correspondence with others, I'm trying to figure out, like, will this hurt GCW's ticket sales in January? Or may this help? Because every story that I saw announcing the ROH AEW stuff, which I don't think has even been officially announced yet, has mentioned GCW running the hall in January. What do you think, John?
I don't know. I feel like almost like they ran it on purpose, almost like an old Vince move. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that might hurt GCW. They might not sell as many tickets because I know they keep getting mentioned, but if you already went and you already spent your money on ROH and then AEW, are you going to have any money left over to go to GCW? I don't know. I feel like that might hurt them. It definitely reeks of an old Vince McMahon move. Like, oh, they're running that. Well, we're going to run it before, and we're going to make sure that there's not enough fans left to attend their show. That's just my general feeling when I saw that. I didn't like that.
That's interesting. That does seem very petty as Shad Khan parks his mega yacht in Florida has been coming up on my Google News
Yeah.
feeds.
Yes.
I feel like, the venue of the Hammerstein, like it's not, well, I had an intern there, right, in 2000. So
Oh.
one of the things that I learned is that a lot of the events they do there aren't necessarily forward facing. It could be like corporate meetings and that sort of thing. Which I would kind of go to, and people would be sort of like looking at me like, who are you? Like, there's once a private event where Missy Elliott was there, so that was cool.
Oh wow.
But this is the type of venue that has to be booked in advance. So I think it was coincidental, especially given that, like, if you're going to do Final Battle, right, like you'd have to have booked somewhere else and thought about it. But it is wrestling, so this can happen. You know what I absolutely thought was going to happen, though, in such a move? December 17th, I thought that's where NXT would be. That would be amazing. Instead of Lowell. I think booking Lowell was a really smart move, but that would have been something, right?
Yeah. Interesting. So NXT, that was you're thinking that, or was that actually like out there in the ether?
I was thinking that.
Oh,
So
okay.
because given that they were doing these like unique shows, and then sort of like when they were announcing the Lowell show, I didn't look at the date, and I was like, oh, I actually tweeted, oh, it's December 17th going to be NXT, and then I was like, oh, I look like an idiot because that's the Lowell date, so I quickly deleted it, but that's what I was thinking.
When you're looking at NXT and running Lowell. It looked like, I don't know. Did New Japan do okay there? Do you think that's a good area for NXT?
Yeah, so jumping ahead there, I actually got an on-the-ground report from someone that was working the event professionally, but doesn't work for New Japan. And I shared with him that Cage Match had 1,022 listed. I was like, that didn't seem likely at all, given that there were front row tickets available. I know that some people aren't going to pay whatever it was, $300 for front row. And he's like, if it was half that, I'd be surprised. And he had some high res images, not necessarily of the stands because it was actually dark, but from the ring to the stands, like you could see that it was pretty empty.
Interesting. As far as GCW, going back to them, what's going on with them with Dream On? I know we were talking about obviously Hammerstein, but they have a huge show in November, Dream On, at the American Dream Mall here in New Jersey.
Yeah, so they sold out their initial allotment on the floor, the designated parts of the second and third tier. They've been opening up more sections. I don't know like how far you can go and have people still navigate the mall that don't care about this event. But last I checked, there's just a few sixth row available, and then suddenly like a small handful of fifth row became available. So basically, you'd assume through the sixth row it'll be sold out by showtime. I don't know if they can add a seventh row, but as transcribed by PW Ponderings, we also have a big show coming up on November 23rd. This is Brett, which is, it's the Mall of America of the East Coast. It's a big deal. It's actually currently sold out. We're working with them now to see if we can add some more seats or bring in some bleachers to let us increase the capacity, but we're already sold out. It's going to be a big deal. There's a fan fest in the afternoon, starts at 2 o'clock. FanFest, well, a little bit of confusion here. FanFest goes from 11 to 2. The GCW show goes from 2 till whatever, 4:30 or 5, and then the AEW pay-per-view is down the road, Newark at 7. So it's going to be a fun atmosphere of wrestling for people in New Jersey or anybody coming to visit. But this is the start of what I think is going to be a very exciting relationship with American Dream. There's a lot of events coming to the area in the next year or so. If you have seen an announcement about SummerSlam, and so no spoilers, but yeah, maybe more stuff in the works.
Nice. Love it.
So that's their success. Another positive is that they announced very loudly, in a good way, that they're working with Progress on January 26th. But very quietly, as far as I noticed, I don't know if you saw anything about this, John. The day before, they're actually going to France or the French region. Like, I'm a little bit confused about the geography, but they're working with a hardcore organization called BZW in Bapaume, Frankreich. Sorry, everybody. So that'll be curious, interesting, because I don't think they've been there. We talked about the Hammerstein. Now, I don't want to make things sound bleak, but basically all the other shows that I've been looking at that are on the books, the ticket sales look like they're in the toilet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know, what's going on. And this is, in the moment I captured it, of course, we're recording, and I caught it a couple of days later, so certainly the ticket sales would only go up. But ticket sales look very, very bleak. So let me go through that. So November 15th in Sauget, Illinois, I had at the time 10 or more second row seats available. In Kentucky, that actually, in terms of the reserved at the time, it's a very small reserved. There were a couple left in the second row, but individual, so they might have done well there. The NGI, but without Nick Gage, usually you'd think that would be a good seller. There were still third row tickets available. On November 29th in New York, which I think will pick up, that venue always does well, there are 10 or more second row tickets available. In December 1st, I think that's Chicago. Let me see. Yes, Say You Will in Chicago. There were their sales page in Talia Hall only lets you reserve 6, so I could reserve 6 front row. In Egypt Shriners in Tampa, 10 or more front row ringside tickets available. December 7th in Center Stage in Atlanta, there were still front row tickets available, just a little spotting of tickets moved. December 13th, where is this show? In Phoenix, it's 10 or more second row, 10 or more third row. Interestingly, in the fourth row, there was only one ticket available, so maybe it was a price issue. December 14th in LA, so a little far out, and again, not to make any excuses or whatever, but GCW tickets tend to sell more closer to the event, whereas traditionally in live events, most of the tickets sell at the beginning, but I think that they'll do well in LA. But second row, 10 or more, third row, 10 or more, and so on. So not looking so great in terms of live events. Curious to see what this all means. I was discussing with some people, there's also like a lot of events in and around New York and New Jersey. So maybe there's like a saturation point there. John, if you were like deciding on shows, like, you know, there's only so much capacity to go, like, would you lean on like going to the mall? Like, what would you do with all these events floating around?
I don't know. It's kind of crazy. There's almost too many, but they all kind of intrigue me in their own way. The one to the mall really intrigues me too. Obviously, you got Foley Angle, you got a bunch of different big names on there too, but that really interests me. The Hammerstein one interests me. Yeah, I don't know. I probably lean American Dream Mall, to be honest. It's easiest for me to get to as well. Got to think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I'm waiting like the Hammerstein. I want to see like what the main draws are, because the tickets are expensive, and I'm kind of tired of sitting in the balcony. If I'm not in the front row, I know it sounds like snobbish, but I'm not as young as I used to be. I love the Brooklyn experience. I've been a couple times. This one's on a Friday night, so I can't go to that.
Yeah, sometimes it's timing and sometimes it's location. Like obviously, like Brooklyn and Hammerstein for me are harder to get to. The Dream Mall, I could just drive there in 45 minutes and be there, so it's not that bad of a drive.
Yeah, and if you're considering the Hammerstein, what appeals to you most? ROH, AEW, or GCW?
Man, I don't know. Like old school me would have been ROH, no doubt about it. But I feel like GCW is taking the lead now, just because I don't know. You never know who's going to show up. The last time, it wasn't like the greatest show last time, but hey, you had Jeff Jarrett, you had all this random surprises, and you just never know who's going to show up. ROH, I feel like they've definitely fallen off since they're obviously part of AEW, and I don't know. Collision feels like they don't really put a lot of effort into it, so I would go GCW.
For me, like, since I don't watch anything regularly, like I think I could like fully embrace like the con promotions, just to enjoy the night, to know that there is going to be good wrestling on. And
Right.
like I haven't been to AEW, so I'm just like curious to go, and maybe I could catch Mookie like before or after or something like that.
Yeah, actually, and my buddy was mentioning the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. While on paper, it doesn't really look that good. AEW does usually put on good pay-per-views, and the tickets were actually pretty cheap for Full Gear. So I don't know. I was kind of thinking about Full Gear as well, which is not too
Yeah.
far. It's like 45 minutes from me in New Jersey as well.
Um, I feel like there was a discount code out for that too. I'm not sure. Maybe there was just so many other discounts. I think they were like, what was it, 6,500, maybe 7,000 tickets? At this point, how's
Yeah.
parking over there?
It's funny. I've been to that venue a few times. Sometimes there's a pain in the ass, like as far as getting some parking. But the last time I went, it wasn't an issue at all. Right across the street, they had the parking lot, so wasn't too bad. But I have been there several years earlier where it was kind of a pain.
Cool. So, John, I know that we're both busy people today. So maybe we should do like a flash run through of all the other news.
Yes, NWA. Give me a little bit of a flash on the NWA.
Yeah, so not surprising, and I think it's a great move for everyone. World League Wrestling hooking up with NWA officially before they've collaborated and all of that. Like, why not? World League Wrestling has the Harley Race legacy. Those that follow it are certainly familiar with the business. They're both old school. World League Wrestling also has a fair amount of like low power television distribution. So it just sounds good, to list the number of stations and markets. I'm not sure how many people are watching them, but that certainly doesn't hurt the NWA to have that. Just noting that they had a cool graphic, like champs around the territory, so that, besides the core, obviously Billy Corgan is into that concept. The show in December that we've been talking about forever, it doesn't look that far away anymore. And they've moved a fair amount of tickets, but I'm just watching in Dothan. I'm just curiously watching that to see if they'll get the same love and in terms of the press. In January in the OC Theater, there's still front row tickets available, some front row and second row available. Interestingly, on their website, I think it's a smart move so it doesn't get confusing. They've prioritized their signature events, the main NWA events, and then they list events from their affiliate promotions.
As far as TNA is concerned, they've got some big shows coming up, or did have some big shows.
So in Fayetteville, the Crown Arena, at least I'm not sure if it was a double taping, at least the first night, there was a great angle where they had actually shifted. So there was there's risers. Everyone knows it's a big venue. So they shifted everyone to one side except for a front row. And it was a smartly taken picture because in back, it was darkened, but I zoomed in on the picture and cut it. There was a number, it was a ton of empty seats, of course, because they're just using a part of it. So no shame in that, but people were celebrating that they sold out the Crown Arena. So it's my journalistic job just to note that. Yes. Upcoming, the WrestleCade weekend at Turning Point, November 29th. They sold out the titanium add-on portion, but the GA is still available, so we'll just have to see because that's a different way of doing things. Center Stage in Atlanta, most of the reserve tickets were sold out, at least for the first night, and then GA available.
What about New Japan Pro Wrestling?
So we've touched on the LOL event and the challenges inherent in that. I'm curious to see their next two signature events to see if this is going to stick. Does it hit a certain point where it's just not worth it anymore to run shows in the U.S.? December 15th at the Walter Pyramid. Just grabbed a portion of the screenshot. There were still front row tickets available there. San Jose, some spotty sales on the floor, but the upper tier was all still available. So not being bleak on either of those yet, a month and 2 months out, but something to watch. Certainly a slowdown, which we've noted in terms of New Japan USA tickets, even focusing on their semi-premier events here without even running smaller events anymore.
How about All Japan Pro Wrestling? Something we rarely talk about on the show.
Yeah, so just wanted to note, Harry Smith, Davey Boy Smith Jr. is their champion now, so it certainly affords them in North America more of the opportunity to promote themselves. I asked around, and somebody please correct this or give some more color to it, just because I don't know too much in terms of the official distribution. It's on their website, ajpw.tv. So I think in terms of assets, potentially Triller can work with in terms of promotions, that rather than a volume game where sometimes they've done with just a few marquee promotions, I think this would be a smart one to work with. I know that years ago they've worked with them. Some of those shows still live on Triller, but in terms of getting notable international promotions with known talent and good, fairly good production values relatively, I think it would be smart for them to work with All Japan.
How about MLW?
So MLW, it's hard to follow their constant movement in terms of their distribution. So they moved from Triller to YouTube TV, and it was going to be we're going to charge you for premium events, which made sense. And now they're for the fans, we've been so successful this year that it's now free. And it's okay. And then they had the Apocalypto show, and then they're due to technical difficulties, we're not going to air it tonight, which, these things happen. So, sometimes it's hard to follow, who's doing what, and certainly not blaming anyone. I'm just, in terms of the personnel whom I last knew are involved. So I believe Dave Marquez, took things over. I don't know if this was under his production umbrella, but interestingly, GPW Productions, who I believe they used to work with and don't anymore, they tweeted out that night a little bit of shade Hey, 45 minutes until DDT Pro Defy live on Fight if you want to watch a stream that will start on time. Update, a stream that will stream on time and actually air tonight, since that isn't possible for everyone, even with a truck. So maybe some, if it's related, maybe some hard feelings there.
Damn, ouch.
And
what about?
Oh, sorry, John. I was just going to run through the Eric Bischoff show, December 5th. Has been notable in terms of just a unique draw there. But and he said he's going to donate what he's making for that night, one night only, to charity. January 13th in Dallas, February 8th in Atlanta, May 10th in Chicago. They're constantly listing hirings, but the listings tend to be older. So I guess either they don't find who they want, or they're hiring somebody. Again, video package editor. So if somebody's looking for work. The Chicago area show was a success. It was sold out, so they announced Azteca Lucha, coming later in 2025.
Nice. As far as Freddie Prinze Jr. is concerned, what's going on with Freddie?
Here's my free advice for Freddie. Enjoy your life, enjoy your family, and your hard work and what you've earned, and celebrity too, although he doesn't seem that into that. And forget the wrestling business. Like, it's too much stress, and I don't know. Like, you always hear about this, like somebody trying to start a promotion. They're like, I met with this company, with this media company. It's like, which media company? And they already have a wrestling promotion, like Warner Brothers. Like, what were they going to do with him? And now we know they wanted him to have a reality show, kind of like the Billy Corgan Honeyland show. And then he met with Vice, and Vice was like, we don't have any money. I think he would have been able to get on Vice because they air Women of Wrestling, late night, and all that, and they pass through with different promotions at different times. But then he was talking about like teaming up with an existing independent promotion. That would be an interesting thing. I'd be see how that works out. So just a snippet of a recent transcription of his podcast. So I started sitting down thinking about it and started looking at the rosters of places that they brought me and the infrastructure. I started weighing the pros and cons. I talked to my guys that are part of my team and say, hey, these are the ones that I'm interested in, but what do you think? And they like the exact same one. So that would be something curious. I know that he had been following GCW because in terms of noting what they were doing, with Matt Cardona years ago. So not starting rumors with that, but I just know that was one on his radar. But I know that he had also talked to at least one other independent promotion years ago hasn't been active in over a year, but he has his fingers on the pulse of that. So would be an interesting way to go rather than starting something from scratch.
Very interesting with Freddie. What's going on? Something we probably never talked about, the big event.
Yeah, so this is, of course, a meet and greet autograph opportunity that was in Queens for a number of years now. It's been in Long Island for a couple of years, and they announced that they broke their record. Paul Heyman was the big draw for the show. It's notable on itself, but also because like WWE has been working with Fanatics in and around their tentpole events, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble. I don't know if they've had conventions, but it'll be interesting to see if like WWE calls back their talent to be like focus on this, or they'll still be able to float around.
Very interesting. Now, what's going on at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center and ACW?
Yeah, ACW is a startup with some talents that are already in the region, but they're bringing in, not unlike Northeast Wrestling, who ran the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, of course, for a number of years, now called the MJN Center. They're bringing Nick Demuth, Thomas Latimer to defend the belts against each other, Tommy Dreamer, Flip Gordon, all that sort of stuff. So sort of like that, like super indie try. It's always worked in Poughkeepsie, but it's a bigger challenge now. Northeast Wrestling isn't doing it or hasn't done it in a while in the Civic Center, so someone else is trying. So curious to see if that still works. We talked about last week with Kevin Kleinrock that's not so much a thing as much anymore. So curious to see if that can still work.
Man, kind of interesting. Hudson Civic Center is one of those, I don't know, awesome venues that kind of never dies.
Yeah, and if Ring of Honor, wants well Ring of Honor, but also AEW. I don't like how it looks on television. It's a nice it's a nice like small venue, but like there's not a lot of risers there, so like it just doesn't look great on television. Remembering from like WWF tapings back in the day, so I wouldn't recommend it in the same way like Hammerstein would be, but maybe for like the AEW Friday night show while it still exists, or Collision.
Right. All right. It's a quickie episode today as you're off in one direction and I will be off in another. So let's hit the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. How about you, Lavie?
Follow me on X, Lavie Mark, Lavie Come aboard our 100-member LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business. Check out my long-form articles on LionCubJobSearch.com. And like, share, review, pin, whatever, shout it out. Make a sign for a wrestling show. Let's get the word out about the podcast.
Yes, awesome. Great to sneak this one in real quick as as we're both off on a different journey here today and this weekend. But Lavie, thank you. Thank you everybody out there for listening. See you right back here next time for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week, folks.